Okay. We've got four watching now. Hey, hello everybody. So
Hi.
this is probably you. I know, how exciting. So for those of you who are watching, or for those of you who are joining us and joining the recording afterwards, this is really exciting. This is our first ever live event, so please bear with us as we go through all of our technical challenges. We thought we had a link set up, but I've never actually joined in earnest Zoom to YouTube, but it seems to be working, perhaps just not with the link we said we would. So I'm Heather, and we've got Shelly.
Hi,
Say
I'm Shelly Riemer, live from Cincinnati.
And we have, well, we've known each other for a few months now, but every time we get together, we just have these most incredible conversations. And I've been very, very lucky, for those of you who haven't seen yet the two interviews now that I've had with Shelly, where we've been talking through Shelly's experience and how it's been to create a business. Basically, we're using spiritual guidance and healing, not just about Shelly's capabilities, but also what it is like to run a business from home, starting from scratch. And so we've had the most incredible conversations, and we really felt that it would be amazing to get together and come and ask some of your live questions. So if you're watching and you'd like to ask us some questions, then please bring the questions in, and we will help explore through life coaching and spiritual guidance any topics and questions that you have that we can answer. So Shelly, is there anything you want to add to that?
The thing that comes to my mind is that actually it's been longer than a few months that Heather had a reading with me. We were introduced through a mutual friend, and the reading really triggered something. Do you remember? It was like you
Yeah.
went on this like kind of journey, and I didn't hear from you for a while, and I was just, kind of like, okay, well, maybe she didn't like the reading, and then you pop back up, and you're like, I have been going through this transformational experience, and then since then we've been pretty regularly reconnected. But I just,
Yeah, that's
it,
true. So just to explain that a little bit, I've been going through a journey of understanding my connectivity to energy, and although it's been so profound and so kind of insistent at various points in my life, I've also, I think, a lot to do with my upbringing and beliefs, which is effectively I have zero beliefs about God, the universe, energy, anything like that, but it's just come to me in waves of connectivity. And I still don't have a word that I choose in preference. I don't worship. I don't have, I suppose, structured beliefs, but I just know that energy has connected with me. Intelligent energy has connected with me many times now, like so many times. It's just, I've got a lot of evidence, which is exciting, and I'm going to talk about it. But Shelley was really instrumental in me just like allowing it in. And I
that's
had
right.
this reading with you because you said to me, or your guides, or you said to me that my guides were saying, just say yes to allowing it to be there. And that opened just a raft of,
Yes.
what do you call it, secondary or primary changes in myself, and also about how I was receiving information.
Yeah. And I think it's good to talk about that process. When we are interested in spirituality and self-improvement, or whatever we want to call it, growth, enhancing our consciousness, moving into a more mystical realm, there we have periods of transformation that are very trying.
Mm-hmm.
And, like we do sometimes have a need to withdraw, um, to kind of process what's happening, because it really changes us. And it's a deep our beliefs can change, our identity can change. And so, when you popped back into my email and said, I've had these 6 months of this deep transformational work, I knew exactly what you were saying and why it took time for you to be able to reemerge,
Mm-hmm.
like the cocoon and the butterfly. So
It is, and at the same time, I think, from what I understand from a lot of people, and even from our conversations as well, as you start to go more and more into the truth of who you are,
mhm,
your external world is also changing massively at the same time. And whether you're on that process and then that drives you inwards, or the journey inwards starts to bring changes in your external world, that can differ for everybody. But at the same time I was discovering energy, I was also going through a divorce, I was sorting out my personal life, I was wanting to build a business, I was starting to receive these things about animal communication. It's like, where do they all fit in? And so who you are and who you think you are becomes somebody completely different. And actually what's been amazing for me is like it stripped me back to the absolute bare essentials of just me, Heather, like that, you know, everything else has just kind of become irrelevant and disappeared, and the truth of who you are starts to emerge, which is a really lovely process, but it's very challenging, right?
I think it's challenging to the degree also that we are attached to our identity. Like I'll speak for myself. This is a great place to start. I don't know if we have anybody on live. I think it's a great place to start. Any people?
We've got 6 watching. We've got Dana here who's sent us a chat, but no questions yet. So let's just keep chatting.
So this is, you know, like for the people pleasers out there, right? So, you know, that's been one of my techniques to kind of maneuver through life, is to be very people pleasing. You know, I'll use my charm, I'll use my wit to like pull people in, and it's like a safety mechanism. And so when I started healing and going through that process of letting go of what's not authentic, I went through about a year period where I really started to consider that I'm not as nice as I thought I was. And I was very frightened about having boundaries, but I realized as my more authentic self came forth, I honestly was like, I'm more opinionated than I thought that I was. Maybe a little moodier. I mean, I'd really put on this shell of nicety as a way to, people listening are like, this lady's a real piece of work. I mean, I'm a good person, but I'm not as congenial. And that was something that it took me some time to let go of this person. I mean, I'm still letting go of it. Who am I kidding? This persona of Miss Nice Guy, and just be like, to stand in our truth and be authentic and say no when we mean no. I don't know. It's been a real journey. And so I've struggled with it as much as I haven't been able to let it go. And the way that it's shown up for me is with my neighbors. And this is just a very day-to-day thing. But and my husband can attest to this, that I've always been very much like, hi, everybody, you know, open for a chat, even though in my mind I was like, I need to get going. I don't feel like chatting. But if somebody's in my neighborhood said hi to me, I'm here. I'm like available for everyone. Well, I'm not as available for everyone anymore. I actually, just this morning, I went out and I was on it. I had to mow the lawn and I had to come on here, and my 2 neighbors were chatting, and I purposely kind of like didn't connect. And it was very odd for me, but it was very true. I didn't want to connect. I was busy. I needed to get done what I could get done so I could shower and get here. And so that's just one of those things when we go through the transformation, is I think if we can detach from our identity, and that, like, I labeled myself as a nice person and then shoved all the truth into my shadow. And to the extent that we kind of like are attached to that mask or attached to the old way, is how much I think we suffer with it. And then the universe ends up just kind of wrenching it out of our hands sometimes, of like, this must be let go. And now it's like, the thing that's nicer about me now is that if I would have engaged in a conversation with my neighbors, and in the back of my mind, not really wanting to be there, in a sense, I'm being very false. Even though I have a smile on my face and I might be laughing and asking about their children, that's a mask. When I show up later in the day or whenever we connect and I want to be there, that is a very deep and grounded way to like, that's nicer actually. So,
but it feels weird to do it. We've got hey from Denmark and hey from Sweden. Hey everybody, if you've got any questions to ask us, please do ask questions, or we'll just keep chatting away to each other. I really resonate with what you're saying, and I realized that, well, first of all, I know that I've not always been nice. It's like, and now I try to be, and occasionally I'll pop up and then I'll realize that that hasn't all gone away. And you know what? It never will, because there's a bit of you that kind of needs that energy to you know, if your authentic self is sometimes to be authoritative, to keep people away, sometimes you just have to react. Dana, this makes perfect sense. Boundaries to protect our energy and time. Yeah, one of the things we're going to talk about is boundaries, and I think it's a really good subject, and it's a really good topic to start with. And boundaries for me, I definitely learned a lot about them in the last 2 years. And when you're saying you didn't talk to your neighbor, I ended up, you know, I realized that a lot of conversations I had, even with friends, and I actually lost a very, very, very good friend of mine because I realized that, I was giving so much of my time to them to talk. And then when I started to withdraw that time, they started to become aggressive towards me. And that was, I just have a zero tolerance policy about aggression. And that actually isn't friendly. There comes a point in time where it's like, where's the friendship in that? And so it shut me down actually quite considerably. So I think actually understanding and being able to be able to say, actually, you know what, I need more time, or I need more nourishment out of this conversation, or I need to have some time on my own, is something I wish I'd known earlier, because I would have been more vocal about my needs. And I only really found my voice probably in the last 2 years to actually really articulate who I am, what I want, and how I want to show up for myself, let alone for anyone else. And I just wish I'd known all of this to 20, 30, 40 years ago, but I didn't, and it is what it is. But it's a really important part of like our life's journey, and that's something I think we really need to start to teach people very early on, which is things like boundaries and how to be very true and authentic.
I do love when I see I have several younger clients, and it's interesting because that whole thought of like, if I had only known then what I know now. So I have younger clients who are getting this information younger, and I'm like, I'm so happy. Like, just, don't, this is what I tell my young clients, don't get pregnant and don't marry until you've got some healing under your belt, because the choices you're going to make from an unhealed place are very different than the choices. And it's one thing to choose a job, but we can choose things that get us into long-term things that we did from our unhealed self. But here's the other thing I've been witnessing about kind of catching them younger. And I remember doing this when I was younger. Even sometimes when we have the information or we have the healing, like, we're going to go do that lesson. We're going to go do like that person, or we're going to go do that thing. I was just witnessing, I had a handful of people in my personal life and in some of my clients who I can see they're like tiptoeing into relationships where there's red flags everywhere. And or red, not everywhere, but they're starting to pop up. And so we're having these sessions, and and I can see that they just keep moving towards it. And there's a part of me that's like, oh, now in my personal life, I've learned to not be such a counselor, because in my personal life, people usually aren't asking, they're not, but
unsolicited advice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's been an issue that I've learned about. But with my my clients, they are asking, and so, but you have to navigate slowly. So anyway, I remember being in my 20s and falling in love and red flags all over the place. And I knew it, and I saw it, and I ran hand first into that situation and got very, very burned, and learned my lesson. And it did lead to a fantastic relationship that I have now with my husband. But at the time, yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of going off track. But when you say, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done things differently. It would save us an awful lot of pain and suffering and tied up energy if we could just get to that authentic place as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because really what you're talking about is being authentic. And we will attract, like that friend that you mentioned, right? You, by being a person who's like, I'm going, come hell or high water, I'm giving to you. I'm listening.
I will always show up. Yeah.
I will always show up. Like, I don't have any needs, I'm here for you. Well, that's going to attract a certain person who's going to love that about you.
Yeah.
And doesn't want maybe you to be like, hey, I've got my own thing going on, I have to say no right now, which makes sense. And then they get upset when you're actually like, oh, actually, I do have needs. And what? You didn't have needs up until now, So when we show up authentically and we have our boundaries and we say our yeses and nos in a very authentic way, we will attract our true life to ourselves. And sometimes, like, to go back to like moving into the red flag arena, sometimes that's what it takes. Like the learning that I did from going through that experience where I went into the viper pit. Even though, I mean, I couldn't even sleep. I was so anxious. It was like all my guides were like, don't, not this way. And I was like, I'm going this way. Like, this man has everything I need. And then on the other side of it, I learned a lot. And I learned not to do that again, basically, so.
I mean, when you're younger and you're headstrong, is it one of these things that you just have to go out and make your own mistakes? Is it, how much of who we become, how much of it can be taught, do you think? Is it just something we just have to go out there and experience and deal with the hurt and deal with the pain and pick ourselves up and go forward? Or is there some way that we can be, to give back? I mean, I know I can't heal or sort out anything that I've been through. And you know what? I actually wouldn't change any of it, even though it's been absolutely awful at times, but I know that I'm a very grounded, very centered, very authentic person on the back of that, which if I hadn't been through all of my life experience, would I be that? I don't know. And does it matter? If we're all, let's face it, we're all after, being loved, having peace, prosperity, and just experiencing as much joy as we can. And the world out there isn't really geared up to make that happen.
Right.
What do you think about that? Do you think that
I think it's just a balancing act. I mean, there's something about getting a lesson in your bones, so to speak.
Yeah.
I do think the knowledge can really only get us so far. I think we've got to live through some things. There's a lot of people out in the world who run abusive, immature, emotional patterns. And I think with this whole narcissism movement we're seeing, and I want a new word because we use the word so overused now, but I think it's so important because there are these old, outdated ways of getting along that have these elements of control and manipulation. And I think that kind of knowledge can absolutely save us and young people from a lot of suffering and from really involving ourselves and staying in emotionally abusive situations. Because the thing about those kind of situations is you don't sometimes see them for a very long time. That kind of, like, when you're in a psychologically or emotionally abusive environment, it is a slow erosion. It's not like the same if somebody punches you, oh my God, this is abuse. So giving people that kind of information on the front end, I think can save you from a lot of pain and suffering. But there are other things that I think, and maybe it's according to our own personal karma, that we just, like, I am so grateful for the heartbreak that I had, because when I met my husband, and we've been together 22 years now, and he's, just the love of my life, my soulmate. When I met him, prior to that relationship that broke my heart, I don't think I would have noticed him. I was looking for the man that broke my heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I had all these daddy issues. I mean, not that I still don't have daddy issues, but I was living with all my issues out in front. And so it's like, oh my God, I love this man who ultimately, ended up like abandoning me and kind of rejecting me and just brought me to my knees. And it was like he brought all the pain. So then a year into, and I will say that the best way to go about anything is to be asking the whole time, no matter how much you're suffering, what am I meant to be learning? What is the lesson in this? That's the way out. So I was already into my healing experience, so I knew to be asking those questions. And on the year after that heartbreak, something had switched in me, and I would not touch a guy like that heartbreaker with a 10-foot pole. And instead, I was very drawn to somebody who actually in the past I never would have picked. He was nice. He was like a business person. He had his little collared shirt on. I mean, I was just always going for just messier men.
The naughtier ones.
In a bit. I mean, yeah. So I think it's both. I think sometimes we have to live through it and get our heart broken and have the experience. And sometimes we can get knowledge and avoid. Oh, I love this. People are saying things.
Yeah, we got some comments here. We got Dano, hello from Colorado. Hi. Hermit mode is so healing. Yeah, hermit mode is very that withdrawal is it's a real place of introspection. The challenge that I'm finding is making yourself come out of hermit mode, because it can become too comfortable. And I've probably been in what we call hermit mode for the better part of 3 years now, and I'm starting to really itch to get reintegrated. You know, I know I want to get back out into the world, but there is this I'm going to say some kind of barriers about, well, either I'm going to go out, I know I understand myself better, I know I understand other people better, so I'm either going to meet people who aren't in tune with themselves, and that's just going to frustrate me, or I'm going to come across people who want to take advantage of me, but I know that I would stop that because I would hear and feel it early. And there's a part of me that just says, where are the fun people? Where are all the fun people who haven't got hang-ups and issues, who want to hang out, who've been through the process of actually, you know, digging out, as Danny, you're saying, it's, you know, the safety of the stable. Question, please. Have you followed your intuition from the safety of the stable, corporate work to a spiritual centered path? How do you know when to jump? Yeah, I can definitely answer that, because that's effectively what I've done. So yeah, reintegrating, so we'll come back to that in a sec, Dana. Reintegrating myself back into that corporate world, or back into the world, is I just don't know where to go, because it's like the world that I knew over there isn't the world that I want to be in anymore. But there's elements of that I absolutely loved. There's a lot of it that I didn't. So I know I'm ready. I'm itching to go integrate, but I'm also
it sounds like you like, just like that bones thing, like I can hear, if you don't mind, like the fear is, the mind goes, okay, here's what we're going to look out for, here's what all the possibilities that could happen. And what I'm hearing from spirit is all of the above is probably going to happen. You'll find some fun people, you'll find some bummers, you'll find some stuck ones, and to just step out.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
it'll be okay. My energy will attract the right people.
Yes, yeah, and it's just like, we don't know until we kind of step out and we kind of poke our head out and, you know, and see what's out there. But I wonder, and I don't know if we have any sensitives. I imagine if you're interested in what we're speaking about, you're all probably pretty sensitive, but it took me a very long time to come out of COVID. I mean, in a way, like you, I don't know that I really have. I have lived a much more hermited life than I did before. And while, like Dana said, was that Dana who said hermit mode? Yeah. Is very healing. Like your experience, I get itchy, and I also get like, I think I'm missing something. I'm missing connection. I'm missing that, the connection with other people. So
that's the bit that started to come through. And I think before I went into hermit mode, you know, I was hyper sensitive to people's energy, but I didn't really understand it all. I didn't understand why. And I think part of that place that I've been for the last 2 or 3 years is to really have the time and space to understand it. And now, knowing what I know, going back out into the world is fine. But I know also when I'm feeling tired and drained that I still have this hypersensitivity to people, and just actually people's pain and suffering, which I just find really, you know, it's kind of on one level heart-wrenching that people are suffering so much, because I feel it. I don't want to feel it, but I do feel it. But I feel it more when I'm feeling tired or I'm feeling down. And so it's just making sure that I think your own energy levels are high enough. And when you want to communicate, you communicate. And you don't want to go out and connect, you don't go out and connect. But it's one of those intuitive processes. I'm just gonna, if we can pop to this message here from, is it, I keep saying Dana, but it's Dana for American pronunciation. Yeah. Okay. Have you followed your intuition from the safety of stable corporate work to spiritual center path? Yeah. I mean, I went from a very, well, I kind of did it in phases, and it's interesting if I look back now. So when I turned 40, I became one of the youngest group corporate female group finance CFO directors in Scotland of a global organization, one which I'd actually helped to build. And turning 40, even though I'd just joined the board of directors formally, I've been presenting to them for many years, I knew, and I used to say to the personal assistants, I have this thing called Project 45. I just knew at age 40, even though I'd just been promoted to this, like, you know, one of the best jobs that you could probably hope to get, I knew at 45 that I was going to be doing something different. I didn't know what it was. And I called it Project 45. I just had this intuition that I was not going to be doing that. A sequence of events led to me leaving where I was, we'd achieved everything that we said we'd achieve in a strategic kind of framework in the corporate world that we said that we were going to do. And partly I'd run my course there for my growth, and secondly, the energy of that environment had become something I didn't enjoy being around. And so on my 3 days before my 45th birthday, I started another job, which was another big corporate job. Again, first female hire to a family business that had never done an external hire, let alone a female in a corporate job. And I actually loved the people, and I had an amazing project to work on, but I also knew that I'd kind of reduced myself because I just didn't know where my home was when I left that. I just didn't know. There was something intuitively that just wasn't fitting that for me. So I almost within 2 or 3 months of starting, I knew that I wouldn't be there very long. And then when I left there, I had this really clear knowing, but I didn't know that I had knowing at that point in time, that I was going in a direction that I didn't quite understand where it was, but it was going to be something that wasn't really relevant to what I was doing now. But I did it in stages. So Dana, when you start that intuition, it just starts to happen in stages. It just starts to happen to you. So I started doing some turnaround work. It's something I could do very easily. So it's helping very, very financial distressed businesses. And that kind of got me setting up my own business. And then from there, I got to a stage where I just had one client too many, seeing the same problems over and over again. And I was just like, I can't do this. That was just after COVID. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I actually just can't show up and do this work anymore. It's a bit like how do you teach children not to, have the problems of relationships? I need to take the learnings of what I'm seeing in 50, 40, 50, 60-year-old people and take them back to the 17, 18-year-olds and say, this is how to have a good relationship with money. This is what being an entrepreneur is all about. And at the same time, this energy thing was starting to come and rise and rise and rise. I was interested in how the energy dynamics of people in business could impact each other. And at that point in time, the universe started feeding me stuff, whether it's feeding me pennies or it's feeding me experiences. And so I also had this knowing that when I left that I was only going to be doing that turnaround work for a little period of time. I did some life coaching because I just wanted to understand people on an individual basis, not in the corporate world. And then I just kind of shut down. I just closed the doors, and I just couldn't cope with people's tears. I couldn't cope with the people emotions. And I'm just no, I just need to go and solve some problems here and go and use my creativity to help people understand emotional eating, help people, which I needed to understand for myself, help people understand money. And so I did all this creativity, and it's all there. And then this whole energy thing started with animals and meeting you, and tarot, which is, on one level, the most amazing life coaching tool. It is a sophisticated, brilliant life coaching tool. I didn't expect the energy side to come along too. So I did a whole series of case studies, and now I just need to share that knowledge. I need to share that information. So tarot helps me with life coaching so that I can help people. But I think, Dana, back to your question, it's one of those things you just end up knowing, and then the sequence of events just starts to unfold in front of you. It just rolls itself out. And then you get to the stage, it's well, I have all this knowledge, I have all this creativity. Who do I go and ask? Because I have no idea. It's I don't know where to take it. And then your fear of the human fears of being exploited, because that's what happens in the corporate world. But actually there's real fundamental, well, we've both said, Shelly, isn't it? We're quite happy to have probes stuck in our head because there's fundamental knowledge that you and I have, or skills and gifts that you and I have that are called psychic, but they're just, our senses are more developed than everybody else because we've worked on it, and everybody can develop these skills. And this is fundamentally important information for science. And so it's right, I've got to get back out there and help people understand the human body better, because if we understand our humanness, we become kinder, we can become more compassionate, and when we're kinder to the animals, we interact with them in a different way. So that was a little bit of a selfish story there, but it's really, really important to follow your instincts.
Yeah.
I think more and more people are getting really fed up with the corporate world because it does not serve up kindness.
Yeah. I think it's very important to tell your story, Heather, especially because you had so much success in the business world. You had more success than most.
I got very
you know,
bored of it.
yeah, you were compelled
Really bored of it.
to take another journey. And I think that fear really holds people back. And that makes absolute sense. I mean, when we start talking about money, we're talking about people's survival. And I was just thinking about this morning. I was folding my laundry and oh, Dana said thank you. It was beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Dana.
Or Dana.
Dana,
Uh,
Dana.
she's calling from Colorado, so we'll have to go with Dana.
Dana.
Well, she's a expat. So anyway, yeah, I totally get the scariness of moving out. I mean, so many levels. There's money, there's not, yeah, like stepping out of the box. I mean, there's so many things that could hinder us being seen. I mean, so I think telling your story, and you may even be writing the story one day, Heather, is just so important because
I reached out to a friend to find a literary agent this morning.
oh
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, no, I have to tell it. I have to write about this. It's really important. It's really important for women as well, women's empowerment, because we're not good at being kind to ourselves, and we're not good in the business world as a woman. We're not, and we need to just be really honest with ourselves about that. And it will help a lot more women in business to get to the top if women understood what's actually needed, what are the skill sets that we actually need to get hold of, and it's not trying to be like a man. It just isn't. It's actually trying to embody our feminine energy and actually embracing it, and that throws up some challenges about the fact that we're not very good at negotiating. We are more empathetic, but we also have a lot more tendency to sit and stay and wallow in, for want of another word, jealousy. So men have sexual jealousy, women have emotional jealousy, and the emotional jealousy lasts longer, it's more destructive, and it is more damaging to an individual when we compare ourselves to others as opposed to comparing ourselves to ourselves. And that is one of the best things that a woman can do to get themselves to the top, is to be as authentic as they can, to be as kind and supportive to themselves as they can, and then focus on, are you better than you were before, not are you better than anyone else? And it's really, really important information. And that goes into relationships, it goes into women's use of social media, it goes into, so many aspects of the female existence at this point in time, because women are far more challenging to deal with than men are. They really are, particularly in a business world. And I know most people won't want to hear that, but it's the truth and it's the reality, because we're just not good at being authentic to ourselves. We keep trying to find a reason on the outside of us to hang on to feel good about ourselves. And actually what it comes down to is just believing that you can be better, believing in your own capability and your own intelligence. So I definitely need to write and talk about it, just to help people, even though it's a bit of a hard message sometimes. So there you go. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's a lot of a very personal healing, I think, that needs to be done so that the collective, and my guides are always reminding me of that, because I have such a call to help and assist and move out in the world. And at the same time, I've got so much personal healing to do. And, when we look at people collectively and we see these patterns, we see patterns in men, we see patterns in women, we see patterns in, different segments of the populations. It's funny because those patterns are all like, you can whittle them all down to somebody's very personal experience. And how, if we just continue to take women as a whole, I think most women, and let's say in the Western world, because I don't have much, that's where I have knowledge.
Yeah.
We have been taught to please, be nice, smile, be accommodating, attract to the male gaze. I mean, all these things that are deep in our bones, which what it takes to become successful in life, to have those boundaries and everything. Oh, it's just such a breakdown of almost that individual survival instinct that women have been taught. I do think that things are a little different for the girls coming up. My son is a teenager, so I'm around the younger girls coming up, and I don't know. I mean, they definitely have a strength about them that I did not have. And the girl, and I mean, this is a small segment. This is just me looking at the girls that I know. And when my son goes to a really large public high school, um, I think there's been some movements in, feminism, and I can't talk on feminism a lot, but I think things are changing. But it's kind of like that saying, as above, so below, or what we can look at macro is actually micro. So you've got, you know, millions of women on the planet who have really wounded inner girls. And that individual healing that women can do, that's going to help them in every way, help us in every way.
Yeah, I actually think the younger generation are more savvy and more equipped than we are. You know, if I look around my age category, I think we are holding on to a lot that is we don't need to hold on to. You know, for example, I want to bring up a dear friend of mine, and I don't want to use her specifics as an example because that's unfair, but I think as a generalization, there are a lot of podcasts. She's talking about a podcast of somebody who's talking about women's rights, and 200 years ago women were allowed to marry each other, and I think this is important information, it's important history. But if we keep producing podcasts and focusing on what was, or the fact that women should have these rights, or that that there's this fight, as opposed to actually saying, well, as far as I can see and as far as I've experienced firsthand, nothing's ever held me back. Being a woman has never held me back. And I think if we keep focusing on the energy of, oh, it's not right, all we're doing is focusing on the energy of it's not right, as opposed to saying, actually, so much has been sorted out to open the doors for us. Why we don't have equal pay is, I think, more that women don't negotiate, not necessarily more that the fact that they're and it's difficult. I find it very, very, very difficult to negotiate for myself. So if we just take what's in front of us and say, actually, so many of the blocks have actually been unblocked, it's up to us to grab them. And instead of going along and saying, well, I want a job and I need to subserve to it, and it's like, well, if the job isn't right, could we be brave enough just to create a job for ourselves? Rather than joining a board full of men and saying there should be equality, is it the time for women to say, well, actually, we're just going to form our board and do something different over here, and then the men can join? There is a lot more opportunity for women to take ownership than sometimes I think we give ourselves the credit for. And there is I do feel we need to move away. We don't realize we're doing it, but I do think we need to move away. I say collectively, because please, not everybody individual will relate to this, but there's still a lot of victim mentality that women carry that isn't necessarily there, but it is there because we keep talking about it. So we keep the energy block there. Does that
yes, I'm just so impressed with what you're saying, and what you're saying does not kind of, I think, would rub some people the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because of how, with the tone of things right now. I will say this about, first of all, the way you're describing it absolutely is that kind of canary in a, it's not canary in a coal mine. It's like the caged bird, and the door opens and the bird doesn't fly away.
Yeah.
It doesn't even know that the door.
That's a really good analogy of it. Yeah.
The other thing is just that I think people are so held back by old injury, and I'll speak for myself as a person who has really struggled with some painful things that happened to me back there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I don't want to move forward. It's that the patterns of energy in my body and in my mind are still very, very much alive. And it doesn't matter what ideas I have. That part of me that is in the unconscious is still effing with me. And I think that is more that I don't know that it's so much that people are consciously, I think it's just, if we could all focus on becoming more conscious and more mindful. Ooh, my light just brightened. I think that that's where a lot of these old patterns are getting kind of stuck, and where we're not moving ahead. And again, for me, it comes down to this, and maybe I'm seeing through the lens because that my job is to work one-on-one with people. It is this very individual kind of sorting out what is binding us. And it can feel very victimized. I've been going to this chiropractor. He does network spinal analysis for years. And every time I would go, he would tell me, not every time, but I was always showing this victim pattern. And consciously, I had no idea. I'm like, I don't feel like a victim. I don't like I couldn't kind of figure out. Well, I went through a huge healing process and I was like, yeah, I was still feeling quite victimized,
Yeah.
but I wasn't conscious that I was until I became conscious that I was. And that's a whole other discussion.
But
So,
it's really relevant. And actually, we got a question here
yeah, we got
from
stuff.
Paula.
I know, Paula. Hi,
Hi,
Paula.
Paula. Can you talk about how heart energy helps us with being our authentic selves, and how heart energy can help us with interacting with others? Yeah, I mean, it's really relevant because first of all, well, there's a few things on that, but just to touch on what you're saying and then draw that across to the heart energy is how how I'm feeling that they're linking. When we do have trauma moments, or we have trauma in our childhood, or we have trauma in our past somewhere, and so many people do. I mean, most adults do have some kind of trauma. There's a reason we don't deal with it, because at the time we have to survive that environment, and we do squash it, and we do protect it, and we do push down those feelings. And those are the feelings that cause blocks from the energy flowing through our heart. And there comes a point in time where either we're ready, our environment's stable enough, we feel safe enough on some level that we start to process it. And that's when all of this stuff comes out. And it just takes a lot. And the more time and the more stress that you've had to push down, the bigger the explosion, or the more the energy that has to come out. And I mean, I had a trauma moment in June 2016, and it was a good 7 years of processing, of just being able to free myself of that. And even now, sometimes I'll be just walking around randomly, and there'll be this little bubble of tears that come up, and I'm just like, surely it's all gone by now. But it's not. It just takes time, and it comes out when it wants to. The thing about the heart energy, we're very brought up, I think, to well, first of all, in the Western world, again, to not understand our life force, our chi, our soul, the actual energy, our energy body. So it's all about our physical body. We talk about now our mental health a lot more than we used to. We do talk about trying to feel our feelings. But for me, heart energy is, if you just go back to the basics of flowing energy, we keep so much stuck below our heart, and so much of our understanding of, in inverted commas, love, the love between people, the love of relationships, the word that we use for love, is very conditional. It's not love. It's I need you to keep me happy. Whereas love, when it comes from within, and you're giving yourself love because you're allowing yourself to process all these difficult emotions, so you're actually allowing love to flow through your system, even though that love flowing through your system, and this is love for self, this is love as an animal in its environment that is safe and comfortable, not the human word called love, which we have, I love you if we've got a piece of paper, or if you do this for me. It's something that is very, very, very much coming from within, is coming from understanding that you have this flow of life force, and it is, I choose to try to make myself happy, therefore I choose to have a life where I'm going to allow the flow of being okay to flow through me. So if that is then flowing through your heart, you're then actually removing the blocks. And the blocks, most of these blocks on an energetic basis, for most of us, sit on our grounding. So our mental, like our physical health, our relationship with money, it sits around our middle, our creativity, our sexual relationships, and it sits particularly here, which it doesn't reach the heart, with our sense of self, our I am, our ability to be authentic. And because we muck around with all of these so much, that's why so many of us have weight that we carry, empaths in particular have weight that we carry below basically our solar plexus, is because we block up these areas of our physical body, because we block up the flow of love coming through us and flowing through our life force. And then that goes into the double chin and the throat chakra, and not speaking, the bald patch, because we're not actually allowing our spirituality to come through, the chest, big arms. I get big arms because I've been protecting myself from love. So how it appears on our physical body is quite fascinating. But what it really comes down to with love and this heart energy flowing through, and loving ourselves enough that we allow our stuck energy, our stuck emotions, our feelings in particular, to feel our feelings and allow them actually to come up through our heart to receive love and to be processed and leave our body through journaling, through shouting, through screaming, through crying, through processing, and just allowing ourselves to accept our intelligence. That is, to me, what the flow of love is. And when you've got that flowing of unconditional love for yourself, it becomes a different experience that you can have with anyone else. You become a lot more certain of yourself, you become a lot more certain of your authenticity, and you become a lot more certain of your boundaries as well, because it's just like, I have love flowing through my veins, and my love says that I don't have the capacity for you. I'm still processing. I don't want to go out into the world. I'm ready to go out into the world because I have energy, and it actually physically moves your own energy, your own life force through your body. But if you just keep it below your heart, basically what you're saying is, I refuse to allow my feelings to be recognized by me. I refuse to allow my feelings to be given love. And when we start allowing our feelings to be given love, well, I mean, it's hard work. It is hard work. But on the other side of it is relief, lightness, and the chance for peace and joy and happiness that is truly, truly authentic. So that, I think that's my interpretation, Paula. I don't know if that helps. Let's leave love discussion about women. Yeah, I don't know, Shelly, if you've got anything to add or have a different interpretation as well.
Well, I mean, the authentic was the thing that was coming through my mind, and you kind of got, that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
The end of that was that, I have at times struggled with my heart because of fear and having I'm super protective of myself. And I think a lot of us can be. And also, like, there's some things inside the heart that we don't like. It is at the core love, but it's also, like you were saying, it can be layers of grief and unfelt things. And, the journey of opening and awakening, I don't know if it's always been that way, but in this day and age, it feels like it's the hero's journey to just kind of like, and because we don't just go, here's my heart. The first thing we do is like, here's the thing that's covering my heart, and here's the other thing. And then we just start peeling the layers off. And so it is, it's a worthwhile journey. And I've been on that journey for a very long time now. I think it's utterly important, and I think it's challenging. And I think the word that comes to me at the heart is authentic. Like, hello in there. Like,
yeah,
there's truth. Hello. There's a truth. And
you're quite nice. If you stop beating, then I'm not going to be here. It's like, I need to give you some love.
Like, you're kind of everything, right? If I couldn't speak, I'd still be alive. Hell, even if I couldn't think, I could still. But if this goes, it's life force.
Game over.
Yeah, that is the end of that. So, but yeah, I thank you, Paula, for that question. I love lots of great ideas and insights here. Oh,
we've got real life coaching Yahoo on love from Wyoming. Hey, real life coaching. Paula, lots of great ideas and insights. Thanks.
I have a question from a client. Can I?
Yeah.
Let me see, which one should I ask? I got a few that came in because I asked people ahead of time who couldn't be on. This was a good question that came in this morning, and I think it's kind of in alignment with what we were talking about. She asked, this is from Jill. She's also in Colorado. She says, how does spiritual healing occur with generational work? Like, I think she's asking about the intersection between when we're doing spiritual healing work and how that affects these kind of generational patterns. And the two things that came into my mind when that question came in, like, which one do I go with first, is to kind of talk about the karma of it. And, that the storyline that we're all born into, and that connectedness. And sometimes, as much as I have not wanted to own where I've come from, because there was a lot of pain in that place for me that I've been working my whole life to heal from, I have had to learn and admit that this is my story. This is the story that this spirit at this moment said. And so in that way, when we look at generational pain, generational healing, where I started, I belonged. I was born into a situation that my soul wanted to be in, vibed in, said, this is where I can learn. And these people are going to feel very, very familiar, which means that all the good stuff and all the bad stuff was very familiar to me at that time. The negative things that I experienced, the things that held me back, the ways that my needs were not met or I was neglected, all of that, that was my karma. And generationally, I'm like, these are my people, you know? So since then, as a person who was called onto a healing path at a relatively young age and have done a lot of the healing work, I have made choices about, I don't fit here anymore. I don't want to fit here anymore. I don't want to fit in with the vibe of manipulation. I don't want to fit in with the vibe of the word lying comes to mind, but like suppressing the truth or manipulation or abuse, or like I'm listing all the kind of worst stuff that I went through as a child and the worst things that are in my family line. And we all have those lists that we can make of like, what's the, you know, the heaviest karma of with that gets, and that stuff gets passed down generation to generation, just like the good stuff does, like musical talent. I am fairly certain there was a time in my life when I realized I was a clairvoyant, when I was like, there's nobody else in my family who's clairvoyant. But since then I realized there's a whole lot of people in my family who are clairvoyant. It just was a little bit underground. And so, you know, musical talent, smarts get passed down. So we get this whole lump of, ugh. So in terms of where our healing intersects with generational, I think it happens, from my experience, in a very, almost in an invisible way. Because most people that I've worked with, and myself included, who decided to do the work and to heal themselves and to move away from what's toxic and painful in their family dynamic, the majority of the family is not doing that work. That's what I've noticed. There's usually one or two, and usually they end up sometimes being ostracized a little bit from the family for doing that kind of work. They may decide on their own to distance themselves from the family. It's not an easy, in some ways, it's the most rewarding path, and you can get all this yummy healing and you can get better, but there is a tremendous loss of that family system that can happen. So they say, and I've heard this from spiritual guides, I've heard this from other healers, that when we do this work and we heal ourselves, we are assisting the generations to come, and we are actually assisting the souls that came before. Now, I will say I've had an experience several times, more than, I don't know, let's say 10 to 12 times in my work with people, where I've had a loved one come into the session who is there to assist in the healing of that person. And they have conveyed to me, like, again, more than several times, I'm here because I participated in the creation of this pain. And maybe they were a generational, maybe they were a person that the person who's sitting in front of me never even knew. But maybe that was the uncle who did the thing to his sister, who created the pattern, passed down, passed down, passed down. And now here's a person sitting in front of me with the karma that of these generational wounding. And so different souls have shown up and said, I'm here to assist because I did that on the planet when I was, you know, I had choices to make. I made choices that hurt people. And part of their karma and healing is to help the people who, like, we're on the stage right now, right?
And you've got spirits coming into a session, like somebody who's crossed over from that family lineage, yes, coming into a session with one of your clients. Yeah.
And I, you know, one of the things if people have heard me speak before know, I always say this, that I have very strict boundaries in my sessions. I'm not a medium. I do healing work. I'm a healer. Not that mediums can't be healers, but I'm not here just to connect with family members who've died. The only beings that can come into the session are there for the healing. So when they show up, I know that that's why they're there.
Got it.
And they will convey like this sense of, I have a responsibility here. You know, I'm assisting in clearing up this karma. And and they would assist anybody in the family line who said, I'll do it. I'll clear up the karma. And those are the brave ones. Those are the heroes who are willing to sit down and go, this hurts. While the other members may be drinking, they maybe go, what hurts? Why? God, you're such a wimp. You're so sensitive, or whatever they're doing to avoid. And it's usually there's a person in the family who can't lie about how painful it is. And if they can manage to escape, if they're the ones who bear the pain and they can escape addiction and they can escape the injury and they can sit down and go, like, here it is, and start working through it, those loved ones will show up. I've seen it happen. So Jill's question was about that intersection. I hope I answered that. I mean, I don't know if Jill could be on, but I know she's going to watch the recording, that it is very, very personal, and it affects the line, and it shifts the karma. And the last thing I want to say that I recently heard from another healer, which made so much sense to me, is that sometimes an advanced soul will incarnate into a family line with the intention to elevate and evolve that family line. So they'll show up and go, oh heck no, like this can't be going on. And they will start shifting and changing, and they will start making a change for the people around them. And then they might have children, or they positively influence the family line. So yeah, that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's what I think with everything, whether it's with healing family lines, whether it's running heart energy, whether it's anything else that's been mentioned, you know, women in business, for example, what it really, really starts with is somebody saying, I don't choose this. It doesn't feel good to me. I choose to walk a different path, and I choose to be brave enough. And then once you've started down that path, I think it's very difficult to back away from it, because you become more and more understanding of who you are. But it does become at times very lonely. It can become very challenging. It can become, you know, riddled with fear of being able to be yourself, because actually the more you want to be authentic, the more you realize that you've not been authentic in order to fit in, or in order to please, in order to and authenticity doesn't mean to say that you don't speak your truth. It just means sometimes that you don't speak. You know, I see that, and I hear that quite a lot coming through on the YouTube channel comments, that people will say, you know, I've hidden my psychic gifts. So it's not that they're being inauthentic by saying that they don't have them. They just don't want to share that they do have them, for example. So authenticity takes a few forms. It takes a lot of bravery to say, I choose to be, you know, I choose to be different from my family. I choose to have a different attitude. I choose not to sit in judgment. I choose instead to move towards more compassion, more empathy, more community, more collaboration. You know, I choose not to be competitive. I choose to be collaborative. That, you know, I think we've got that coming through.
Somebody said that. I think somebody said that.
Yeah, somebody said that in one of the comments. And just to pick that up, it is, you know, we talk about doing that, and then actually it's quite hard to find people who do want to collaborate. You know, because it's not normal. It should be normal, but it's not normal. We've got here, Dana has connected. It's definitely Dana, not Dana. So Dana, thank you. The strongest healers are forged from the darkest times, right? The boxes of darkness are gifts. I think that is, I do think a lot of healers have gone through dark times. I do think there are some people who are born into the world who just have that natural gift of healing, and they don't necessarily have been through dark times. But I definitely know that the dark times are the ones that the contrast of feeling not okay can really propel people to want to feel much better about themselves and do something about it. Yeah. Would you agree with that? Yeah.
I mean, I've been through some dark stuff. I mean, so yeah, I mean, personally, I keep thinking of that that song, I'll Stand By You by the Pretenders, there's a line that's, I don't know, she's encouraging this person to speak to her, and she says, I've seen the dark side too. I would find it weird, unless we're talking about a guru or an avatar like Yogananda or I think it's a Mayamada, the hugging saint. If I don't know, it's funny that this question comes up because I have had this new relationship with dark energy and darkness that I did not have before. I think that I came out of childhood that did have a lot of emotional and mental pain in it. Just, I went straight to the light side. And I am like rainbows and sunshine and pussycats. And this is, I'm gonna live over here. And I was able to do that for quite some time. And then I met a man who wanted to do the same, even though he was kind of forged in dark times too. But today we're like, we're gonna just, we're just gonna skip off into the sunset together. But that dark stuff, the heavier stuff, like it didn't really go away. I was trying to just stay over here. I do think that some of the most potent healers that I've met walked through a very dark valley and came out the other side. And it's like I said earlier, it's in their bones.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the thought of people being born onto the planet just like, ooh, and then being able to kind of share that vibrancy. But think about like the story of Christ, whenever we think about the story of Christ, and I'm sure people who would be tuned in with you and I, we have all kinds of people, what they might think about the Christ story. But he was born as the son. Oh, here comes the Christ. And people like brought him stuff and they, they knew, there were people that knew who he was. And look at that darkness he walked through, at least in the story. It was, he had a lot of good times, but there was some dark stuff. So it does. And you think about the Buddha who like left his family. There's not enough emphasis on what happened to his family in my respect. You know what I mean? Like, imagine the abandonment wound. I don't know if he came back to them and laid hands on them and took that from them, but anyway, I'm kind of rambling. Yes,
no, it's fascinating, and I suppose I had in my head there are one or two people I know who just don't miss two people I know. I think I can name two people in my life that I've met who never miscalled anybody. That there was always this gentle, loving energy. Who knows what goes on behind doors, who knows what they have been through or trauma they've been through, but it was natural in them. It wasn't something that they'd had to learn to do. They just turned up. They didn't know each other. Both had the same name, interestingly. Both were called Lorna. Both probably still are called Lorna. I haven't spoken to either of them for a long time, but they're just beautiful, gentle souls who just didn't. They just showed up as themselves, and they never miscalled anyone. And I find that I call that a healing energy, because if you're in their presence, you always felt just safe, I suppose. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it just, we are in a place of light and dark. We are in a place of duality. This earth experience has that. So I think that those light beings are so necessary of upholding the balance on the planet. Does that also mean that the darker energies are necessary? Possibly. It is a school. This is called the Earth School. And where we are at on the spectrum of learning is, I think, up to our individual choices. So I would love to get to a place in my incarnations where I could not have to wade through all this stuff and just show up and be nice.
I do not want to come back. If that is something that we're supposed to do, I do not want to come back. I've had enough in this one. I'm done.
There are guides who they make that choice. They do make that choice to come back and help. And thankfully, but there seems to be a lot more who don't. But they're often is it called Shambhala or Shangri-La?
Yeah.
They're like just probably looking over. Yeah, Earth's still a shit show. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm going to stay away from that. Thank you very much.
I'm going to go back and help. I'm like, you're nuts. Okay, good luck.
No, I've had a great career. I've been blessed. I was blessed with a beautiful marriage, which unfortunately didn't last its distance, which it should have done for lots of reasons. But I've been blessed with some amazing dogs. I've been blessed with some amazing experiences. I'll try to do the best that I can to help the world before I die. And then it's just like, I want fun.
That's the best that we can, I think, do. And you've got a lot of fun coming your way.
I hope.
You do. It's in you. It's not a fun time right now. I think there's a lot of people not having fun. But the fun will come.
Yeah.
We have to maybe embrace the moments. I've had a lot of fun having this conversation. There's nothing I'd rather do than sit around and talk about this stuff. And if people want to come in and listen to us have these conversations and ask questions, like, I could do this all the time.
All the time. It's amazing. So we've been running for about an hour. So shall we call it a day on this one?
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like, as we close, like, just to send out like a little bit of like a prayer or vibe.
Yeah, please. You're going to guide us through something. That would be amazing.
Yeah, let's just do that. And to anybody who might come across this video in the future, because in the spiritual realm, everything's all happening at the same time. So I'll just invite everyone who's listening, whether it's a recording or live, to just take a really deep breath and move your energy deep into your belly and deep into your hips and down through, as Heather gave me a new term, your grounding cord. Imagine a light that goes down from the sacral area into the planet. Get yourself grounded and allow anything that you're holding on to right now, any worry or fear, anything that's tight, old, unnecessary, just imagine you're just releasing it from your system and saying, I align with the highest good within me. All else, I release. Imagine it moving out that cord and just melting away. So, and I'm feeling the need, and I'll make this short, but to connect in with the higher. So a light coming through the crown and then just moving straight down through your cranium, through your throat, through your heart, through your belly, through your sacrum, and then out through that grounding cord. You are just a light, a straight beam of light moving through you. And one more time with the intention that I align with the highest good within me. I align with the highest energy within me. And I release and transmute what is not serving my highest good, what is old, what is unnecessary, what is negatively habitual. I just let it go. Anything you're holding from other people, let it go. And let the light within you rise. The light fills your body, every cell, every chakra, your entire aura, all cords to anything that does not serve you, that is not yours, or that is negative, is cut. And just simply sit in your soul energy. And the song, for anybody who's into songs, that comes to mind is Let It Be by the Beatles. So maybe we can some of us can go listen to that today and vibe with that energy of Mary. All right. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Heather.
Thank you to you.
When you speak, Heather, I feel it in my aura. You are such a healer with your words. Earlier, I felt it. You were saying something and I could feel like shifting happening.
Wow. Thank you. I just adore hanging out in your energy. I mean, well, every conversation I have with you is just a blessing. It is absolutely just such a pleasure and such a delight. And thank you all to all of you who've been here. Oh, pull a card for the collective, Shelly.
All right. Yay.
Yay, real life coaching. Pull a card for the collective. You got your deck there. We were pulling cards just before we started.
So I've got these are Kyle Gray's Angel Prayer. I don't know if this speaks to anyone. I pulled 2 cards before we started. One was Take a Step Back, and that came out twice. So that may be for somebody who needs to hear to take a step back, let the universe, don't stop micromanaging the universe. Let the universe step in. And the other one was the Miracle of Forgiveness. If anybody wants to reach out to Heather and I, if you want to us to have a specific time or specific topics or more questions, like we would love to keep doing this. I think I can speak for Heather.
And if anyone would like a one-to-one coaching session or a spiritual guidance session with Shelly, the links are down below, so you can contact her on the website.
This is interesting. So this is spiritual support.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's relevant for us, isn't it?
The picture? I mean, I just look at the picture. That's so great. I really feel like this is, it says here, dear angels, I allow you to support me as I grow to become more spiritually aware. So there's two things I want to say. One is I feel like it's a message of support for what we're doing here, and for you all, and the importance of having spiritual community. So it's like that connectivity here, and all of our guides are with us. But then on an individual level, it's like, you know, a little homework for everybody is to sit down and really evaluate where you are supported. And that's such a message for me. I was just telling my husband I wanted more support. I want to feel more supported. Well, pay attention to where you are supported, and pay attention to where you may be undermining the support that you have, maybe through your own problematic thinking, or maybe you're not allowing the good things in. But this message is like, look, you are so supported. You are so loved. We have no idea. Like, the thing I love about working with the spiritual guides is I can feel their love. And I'm like, dang, like, I wish I could feel this every day. Like, I would save me so much trouble from the old gobbledygook in my head. I can feel it a lot, but it doesn't stay because I'm problematic in my own right sometimes. So you all are supported. This is spiritual support. I would love to grow this and just keep.
Yeah, it would be amazing. Yeah. And I just want to point out to anybody, when you have a one-to-one session with Shelly, not only did it transform my own journey, my own spiritual connection, my own belief in my own connection to my guides, you will have Shelly literally live connecting into you. She will channel and move and connect to your energy and to your guides. It's the most profound experience. So I really do encourage anyone who wants to, who is watching, who wants to understand more about their own spiritual path and their own spiritual development. It is a life-changing experience to connect to Shelly and have a session with her. It's just the most beautiful gift you can give to yourself. It really is. Like, it's just incredible. Wow, thank you for the card. Spiritual guidance is all around. So
all right. Thank you, everybody.
So, Paula, Dana, and Real Life Coaching, thank you so much for coming on chat with us. For everyone else who's watching as well, it's amazing to have you here. If you're watching on the recording, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you'll sign up and be notified for the next time we're going to do one of these. Hopefully we'll do it.